Good afternoon, everybody. We're all here today to highlight the many failings of the public body based here in Stevenson Street, called the Criminal Cases Review Commission, or more usually the CCRC. As most of you will know, the CCRC was set up by Parliament in 1997 as a result of the Criminal Appeal Act 1995. This reform had broad cross-party support and was intended to bring an end to the series of high-profile miscarriages of justice, such as the Birmingham Six, the Guildford Four, Stephen Kisco and Judith Ward, amongst others, that had seriously undermined the public's faith in the integrity of the criminal justice system. In order to achieve this mission, the CCRC were given wide-ranging powers to investigate potential miscarriages of justice, such as being able to demand any documents or other material from public bodies, such as the police or CPS, and this power was later extended to cover private individuals and non-public bodies. Therefore, the CCRC came into being on the back of Parliament's very good intentions and armed with all the tools that they needed to swiftly investigate and, if confirmed, rectify any potential miscarriages of justice by sending the cases and the exculpatory evidence back to the Court of Appeal. The CCRC was set up to be the only route to the Court of Appeal and where, in effect, made the gatekeepers to justice for the wrongfully convicted. So, how have these noble aims worked out since 1997? In a word, disastrously. In practice, the CCRC can't or won't do the job that Parliament gave it. It won't use the powers that it was given to investigate cases presented to them, and they show an almost callous indifference in their dealings with applicants. They almost invariably break their own guidelines on how long it takes to deal with an application. For instance, it took nearly 2 years for them to actually start reading the submissions that were made on behalf of Jeremy Bamber in March 2021. His first case review manager, knowing that he was leaving the CCRC within 12 months, reviewed none of the issues lodged. And the second, current case manager, took many months to familiarise himself with the case prior to beginning the review. Is that justice as Parliament intended? No. You will hear from other speakers about many other aspects of the way the CCRC operates that are either substandard or failing altogether. However, there is one problem that I will mention which is of particular concern to a lot of campaigns for justice, and it hasn't received a lot of public attention. And that is the role of former police officers at the CCRC. And again, I'll give you an example from Jeremy Bamber's case. The second round of submissions that Jeremy made to the CCRC in 2004 were never investigated. Elements of them were dismissed on grounds that we now know to be legally incorrect, and the whole application was dismissed after 8 years. During that whole period, the person overseeing the process as head of investigations at the CCRC was the former head of CID at Essex Police, the very force that was under scrutiny in the application. This individual did not recuse himself from Jeremy's application, and it later transpired that he had played a key role in stopping fraud charges against some of the key prosecution witnesses at Jeremy's trial. A blindingly obvious conflict of interest? Not according to the CCRC. Justice being seen to be done? I really don't think so. So, there either needs to be radical reform of the current setup, or as I think most of you would agree, a clean start with a totally new body that actually lives up to the role within the criminal justice system that the CCRC was meant to play. The recent Andrew Malkinson case has shown once again that the CCRC are incapable of reforming themselves, as their faults are so deeply ingrained. So outside action is needed. Parliament intended the CCRC to be a beacon of hope for the wrongfully convicted. Instead, it has become the graveyard where the hopes for justice of thousands of innocent people go to wither away and die. And that is wrong, morally, legally, and in every other way. And for the sake of justice in this country, that needs to change now. Thank you.
I've listened with pain and anguish at the stories of injustice that have been told today. Anyone with any heart or conscience knows that the CCRC is failing people who have put cases before it. Your testimonies today show why the CCRC must be reformed, why it's failing to do its job, why it is leaving people who have evidence of wrongful conviction languishing in prison for months, for years, even for decades. The CCRC is not fit for purpose. What you've heard today is testimony from the victims of miscarriages of justice, from their friends and supporters who've challenged the CCRC, who petitioned the CCRC, who put new evidence to the CCRC, and are still being ignored. This is not British justice. This is British injustice, and it has to stop. From the many cases we have heard today, and many others we have not heard, it's clear that the CCRC is a failed institution. It is marred by delays, incompetence, and bias against prisoners who presented credible evidence of wrongful conviction. Now, we all know that the stated purpose of the CCRC is to overturn miscarriages of justice, to refer them to the Court of Appeal. That's their job. But in reality, it's a lumbering, inefficient bureaucracy that is failing people left, right, and center. We've heard today examples of people who have been waiting years to have their cases assessed by the CCRC. Here's the case of Susan May. She died in 2013, 11 years ago, and they still haven't considered her case. Shame on the CCRC. By failing its legal duty and obligation to swiftly process cases put before it, potentially innocent people are still left languishing in prison. It's very easy for CCRC staff who've got their freedom to come and go as they please to be blasé about this. They're not the ones who are behind bars unjustly. They're not the loved ones of people behind bars unjustly who are suffering. We've all heard recently of the case of Andrew Melkinson, who was wrongly convicted of rape and spent 17 years in jail. His case highlights the often shoddy nature of the CCRC investigations. If the CCRC had done their job properly, Andrew Melkinson would have been released in 2007, not in 2020. Andrew spent an extra 13 years behind bars because of CCRC incompetence. So in response to the outcry over the way in which they botched the Melkinson case, what has the CCRC done? It has employed interns, unqualified interns, to assess major potential miscarriages of justice. Not qualified, trained forensic scientists and investigators, but unqualified interns. The CCRC is adding insult to injury. The idea that someone's freedom can hang in the balance of the work by an untrained intern is absolutely shocking, shocking beyond words. Yet they're getting away with it. They're getting away with it because they are an unaccountable institution. They are a law unto themselves. They think they can do what they want. Well, we're here to say, no, you can't. The CCRC has got to shape up, radically reform, or be abolished. We've heard today of the unreasonable length of time the CCRC has taken in dealing with cases. We also know that they set an unacceptably high bar when it comes to referring cases to the Court of Appeal. People who submit cases and evidence, they have to produce such high levels of cases and evidence in order to get their cases referred. And that high bar means that unless people have got the money and the resources, the determination to keep pursuing their cases, that often they are not able to get a referral. I know from the work I've done with the Jeremy Bamber campaign about the outrageous lengths of time it takes the CCRC to reply to legal teams. On many occasions, Jeremy Bamber's legal team has submitted letters to the CCRC. On many occasions, Jeremy Bamber's legal team has presented new evidence to the CCRC and has waited months and months and months to even get the courtesy of a reply. In many instances, those replies from the CCRC are merely holding letters saying we acknowledge receipt of your communication. We'll update you in due course. Then months and months and months pass before there's any substantive response. Justice delayed is justice denied. And you've heard today from so many people who've had their cases delayed, delayed, and delayed by the CCRC. I just want to talk briefly about the case of Jeremy Bamber that I've been involved in for many years. The CCRC, despite requests from Jeremy's legal team, has failed to require Essex Police and other public bodies to disclose hundreds of items of evidence, vital evidence, that were withheld at Jeremy Bamber's original trial in 1986 and at his subsequent appeals. There have been court orders to Essex Police to turn over that evidence to Jeremy's legal team. The CCRC know that, but they've failed to order Essex Police to uphold those court orders. And when I contact Essex Police, they tell me, go to the CCRC. It's buck passing between the police and the CCRC. They are both part of the same fundamental problem. And as we've heard today, in Jeremy's case, an Essex police officer was investigating claims that involve Essex police. It's the police marking their own homework, investigating themselves. Jeremy can never have a fair new appeal until all the evidence is made available to his legal team. Essex police have admitted to me that they have withheld evidence. Well, they've implied it. When I asked them to submit to Jeremy's legal team hundreds of items, which I listed, hundreds of items that they suppressed at his original trial and subsequent appeals, the Essex Chief Constable told me, we believe that we have handed over all relevant evidence. Essex Police have abrogated to themselves the right to determine what evidence is relevant. That's absolutely outrageous. And it is a de facto admission that there is other evidence that they have not handed over. It's a basic principle of British justice that someone going to trial, that their legal team has a right to see all the evidence. That has never happened in the case of Jeremy Bamber, and many of the people here who have also been talking about their cases today. Denial of evidence to a defense team is a denial of justice. Those convictions are unsafe. I know in my heart that it's absolutely clear that the suppression of evidence by Essex Police with the de facto collusion of the CCRC means that he did not get a fair trial. His conviction is unsafe. To give Jeremy the chance for a fair new appeal, it's time the CCRC insisted that the Chief Constable Essex and others comply in full with all the many court orders to hand over undisclosed evidence to Jeremy's solicitors. For many, many years, it has refused to do so, and even today, it refuses to do so. Now, we're about to hand in a letter to the CCRC officers. But we've been told that no one is in the CCR offices today. We've been told no one is in the CCRC offices today to accept the letter. I said, I can't believe of all the staff, there's no one available. But I was told, no, they're not here today. No wonder cases are not being swiftly processed, because they're not in their offices doing their job. I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And why is the government, why is the Home Secretary allowing the CCRC to get away with this abject neglect of its legal responsibilities? So what we have to do is, we're going to hand in the letter, and it will be given to the CCRC on Monday, if they turn up on Monday. I just want to finish by saying that from what I know and what I've heard today, there actually needs to be a public inquiry into the way the CCRC operates. A public inquiry into the way it operates. There needs to be much better independent oversight concerning its operations and its shortcomings. To be fair also, the CCRC needs more funding and more staff to expedite cases. So, for all these many reasons, we say that the CCRC is part of a criminal injustice system that keeps too many innocent people in jail. It's time for reform. It's time, if necessary, for abolition. We cannot continue with the CCRC in its present form. It is not fit for purpose.
It went very well. The speakers articulated very well all the failings of the CCRC, and we're pleased that hopefully this event will start a public debate about what needs to be done about the failings of the CCRC.